In episode 4, we're back to Shane and Ilya. It's the summer of 2014, and they're kind of doing their own thing. They're training, they're partying. Shane has endorsement after endorsement after endorsement. But when the season comes around, they're constantly on each other's minds, whether it be on the ice or off of it. Because off of it, these two are steady banging each other's brains out. I mean, anytime they get a chance to. One of them is on their knees, or one of them is, well, I get on their knee. You know what I'm talking about here. Anyway, this ends up working out for Shane big time because he ends up winning his first cup. After the season, it's the exact same thing. With Ilya in Russia, Shane at home training. They text every once in a while, just reminding each other that the other exists. The summer of 2015 is the exact same carbon copy as the summer of 2014. And the season of 2015-16 is also the exact same. They continue to hook up anytime the two teams play each other. And Shane once again wins a cup, back to back. Ilya is left wondering why he hasn't won back-to-back cups. You could say when the summer comes around, Ilya tries to get in Shane's head by getting really sexual with him, but he's not trying to get into his head. He's trying to get into his pants. And when the 2016 season starts, it looks like it's going to be business as usual. Though because these two are far apart, with one living in Montreal and the other living in Boston, Shane does have to spend some time with teammates, and he does that with his buddy Hayden. Hayden and him end up going to the aquarium because Hayden wants to take his kids, where he lets Shane know, oh yeah, we're having another one. And Shane's response to that is, seriously? Yeah, it was no like congratulations. It was just straight up. Are you kidding me? But this sparks the conversation between Hayden and Shane on Shane finding love. Now, Shane had a fling with a girl a while back, but it didn't stick. In fact, Shane says, yeah, I think she's actually married now. But Hayden desperately wants to hook up his captain with somebody. Because Hayden wants Shane to have what he has. The family, the kids, the works. Shane, though, tries really nicely to say he's not interested, but he's not exactly all that direct, and Hayden isn't taking the messages or the hints. For Shane, though, while he says he just wants to focus on hockey, what he really wants to focus on is Ilya's stick shaft. Now, while Shane is doing that, Ilya happens to be at home watching TV with Svetlana, who happens to be in town, and look who's on TV, it's Shane Hollander. He's not playing hockey, though. He's talking about his family's cottage and how it's like a home away from home. It's kind of his happy place. Though Ilya, in front of Svetlana, craps all over Shane, saying how boring he is, how he's just monotone. But Svetlana actually surprises him by saying, yeah, well, Shane is hot, though. The two, though, have plans on going out that night, and when they get in the car to be driven to whatever bar or restaurant they're going to, Svetlana does ask Ilya, hey, are you seeing anybody? Because what Svetlana and Ilya have is more of a friends with benefits situation, and they're very open about that, but Ilya just says no. And then Svetlana really surprises him by saying, well, what about Jane? And Ilya can't believe she remembers that. But Svetlana has noticed that anytime Ilya is in his phone, he's usually texting Jane. But he assures her, no, that's nothing. He gets super defensive about this. Svetlana isn't the only one to notice this relationship between Jane and Lily. Because the next time the Metros are in Boston, Shane is roomed up with Hayden, and he says, yeah, I'm going to go out. And Hayden takes Shane by surprise when he says, are you going to see Lily? And just like earlier with Svetlana, Shane gets really, really defensive. He tells Hayden it's nothing, and he probably raises more alarms by reacting like this than he would have had he just said, yeah, that's exactly who I'm going to see. But either way, he ends up going over to Ilya's house, and it's the first time he's been at Ilya's new place. But the two get right into it, and by it, I mean the whole screwing thing. When it's over, Shane says, I probably should go, but Ilya convinces him to stay because they're not actually playing until the next day. They have all afternoon together. They end up fooling around some more, but that creates a little bit of hunger, where Ilya suggests, hey, I'll just make you a tuna melt. They then actually get into normal conversation about hockey, where Shane's heading next. Ilya puts some highlights on the TV. They talk about this enforcer named Ryan Price, who is making waves all around the league for just destroying people. Ilya actually played with him, and he says, he'd surprise you. He's not like he is on the ice. He's kind of a loner, quiet, keeps to himself. Shane then makes a joke about the city of Buffalo. Ilya laughs at it and says, it's funny. People say you're boring. Shane looks at him like, who says I'm boring? And Ilya owns up to it. I say you're boring. This segues into conversations about where the other likes playing in terms of, the away games. Shane's showing off that boring side. But then they get into the relationship conversation and whether or not they're seeing women. Ilya tells Shane all about Svetlana, how he really likes her, how he's known her for so long, how she's nothing more than friends with benefits, but also that Svetlana is a big fan of Shane. However, this conversation is clearly making Shane a little bit jealous. Ilya talking about being with a woman, but when he says it's nothing more than friends with benefits, he also brings up the fact that he could just find somebody else. Shane wanting to be that somebody else. This compels Ilya to tell Shane how he's bi, and then he asks Shane, what about you? Do you like girls? And Shane's way more reserved about this. He says he likes girls, but his private life is just that. It's private. He doesn't really want to get into it. Ilya then gets a phone call. He excuses himself, and he starts speaking in Russian. The phone call is from his father. His dementia has gotten way worse, and he's alone. He's calling Ilya to see where he is, but Ilya pays his brother to take care of his father when the season's going on. In the off-season, Ilya takes care of his father, but in this instance, he's really concerned. He's thousands of miles away from home, no way of getting there in a short amount of time, and his dad is clearly needing some help. And his brother? Nowhere to be found. He calls his brother. There's no answer, but he rips into him. And then when he returns to the couch, Shane surprises him by saying, hey, how's your dad? Because he just heard the word Papa over and over again. Ilya doesn't let on the severity of the situation. He kind of just cuddles with Shane, but this leads into a makeout session with shirts off and hand jobs. It's a whole thing. But at the end of it, Shane gives the best post-game exit, if you will, by telling Ilya, hey, thanks for the tuna melt. And that's definitely going to be the line I use next time I get laid, if it ever happens again. For some reason, all of this, though, spooks Shane. He starts making excuses on why he has to go. Ilya's really confused about all of it. Again, Ilya looks at him like, dude, seriously? These excuses you're making up? But Shane just keeps fumbling over his words until he finally says, I can't do this. And he leaves. Now, whether or not Shane actually had plans that day, we don't know. We doubtful. But eventually he has plans, and those plans are with his parents to meet up for lunch. His mom, Yana, wants to go through a litany of endorsement deals, one of them involving going to Wimbledon. She really starts pushing Shane, and one of the things that she says is like, well, you could sit next to a princess, because at this point, his teammates aren't the only ones noticing that he doesn't really date. His parents are now putting the pressure on him, or at least his mom. But Shane gets really defensive. He snaps back and says, no, I'm focused on the season, I'm focused on hockey, I don't want to hear it. And he just puts the kibosh on the whole plan. He's got a game that night that he has to prepare for, and after the game, he does what he always does. He goes home. But he gets a phone call from a teammate who tells him that you're coming out with us because the cast of the X Squad movie is in town. They're filming, and they're at this particular bar. Shane doesn't really care about that, but fine. Okay, he's the captain. He'll go out. He'll hang out with the boys. When he gets to the bar, he orders a drink, but he does end up getting excited when he finds out that the star of the X Squad movie, Rose Landry, is in the bar. This actually brings a smile to his face because he's a big movie guy. He watches them all the time on the planes. He's seen a lot of her work, and it's not too long before he runs into her. It's completely by accident, mind you. He just kind of needed to get away from everybody, and he just sits down in a booth, unaware of the fact that somebody else was already in that booth. How does that happen? Well, it happens to Shane. Rose Landry is just sitting there, housing some fries. She offers him some. They start chit-chatting it up. It turns out she's a big Detroit fan. The flirtation is there, and they end up talking all night. This is really the first time that Shane actually shows a bit of a personality. And it's probably because he has no expectations for a potential relationship with her, but that's what he ends up falling into. These two end up hanging out quite a bit. They end up getting photographed in the tabloids, talked about in entertainment shows, and while neither of them confirm a relationship, it is very T-Swift, Travis Kelce. While it's great for Shane's image, it's not great for his secret relationship with Ilya, because now it's Ilya's turn to be jealous. When he starts reading the tabloids and he starts seeing the news about Shane stepping out with this Hollywood actress, he gets territorial fast. And the next time the Raiders play the Metros, it's the first time that Ilya does not reach out to Shane. Normally, that's the whole thing. Ilya starts getting really sexual with Shane before the game. It's kind of known after the game we're going to hook up, but not this time. No. Because for Ilya, he's like, you have your girlfriend. Enjoy that. I mean, they don't even talk trash during the game. And at the end of it, Ilya is so annoyed that he goes back to his room at the hotel. He looks at his roommate and he says, we're going out tonight. I need to get laid. So they head to the club. It just so happens to be the same club that Shane Hollander is at, though. Shane got dragged out to the club by Rose and her co-star Miles. I think it's pretty safe to say Miles is gay. I mean, when he heads to the bar and he sees Ilya, he definitely looks him up and down. Ilya kind of looks at him. But at this point, Ilya doesn't know that Shane is there. No, that happens later when he sees Shane and Rose dancing, and he then locks eyes with Shane. It is worth mentioning, it's weird at one point because Shane is dancing with Rose, and then Miles just comes up and starts grinding on Shane, and nothing's said about it. Like, Shane or Rose probably should have stepped in and been like, yo, can you give him some space? But no, it's nothing said. Anyway, these two, meaning Ilya and Shane, go back and forth all night, trying to make the other jealous. Ilya hooking up with a girl right there on the dance floor, Shane being with his girlfriend, and it ends with neither of them happy. Shane goes back to his apartment with Rose. They end up having sex, but the whole time Ilya is on his mind. And for Ilya, even though he wanted to go out and get laid, it doesn't happen. He goes back to his hotel room alone, jerks off in the shower, and the whole time Shane is on his mind. But neither of them are happy. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.